Alpha King Lothaire stalked up to her and leaned down, brushing Neveah's hair away from her face before he grabbed her chin in a tight grip. "I cannot hurt you, but there is someone who can." "I hear you have offended Alessio," Alpha King Lothaire said in a casual tone. Neveah's heart sank at the mention of Prince Alessio. She had not set eyes on him since that night, and she had consciously avoided bumping into him. Prince Alessio had not even arrived, but Neveah already sensed his presence from a distance, and she fiercely resisted the terror that crawled up within her as the doorknob was turned and he came in. "You called, Father?" Prince Alessio asked, before his gaze trailed down to Neveah curled up on the floor. "Your sister has grown too stubborn. Take her away and remind her why she is not to defy her father's orders," Alpha King Lothaire said as he rose to his feet and headed back to the desk. Neveah did not need to glance up to know there would be a depraved smirk rested on Prince Alessio's lips. He had always found pleasure in Neveah's misfortune. For reasons Neveah could not understand, Prince Alessio hated her nearly as much as his mother did. Perhaps his reason was the same as his mother's. Prince Alessio idolized his father and revered him like a mini god. Neveah's existence was a constant reminder that his god was not so perfect, and Prince Alessio hated it. Hated Neveah for being a stain on his father's honor and a thorn in his mother's side. "As father wishes," Prince Alessio replied as he strode over to Neveah. "What did I say, Omega? Menvi el lumet cur," Prince Alessio murmured to her. Grabbing a handful of Neveah's hair, he pulled, dragging her across the ground out of Alpha King Lothaire's office. Neveah whimpered as the whip struck across her back again, a sharp, burning line of pain that stole her breath. The excruciating pain and blood loss nearly had her passing out, but Neveah shook her head against the black spots dancing across her vision. Neveah was hooked up to metal chains in the dungeons as Prince Alessio stood before her, holding in his hand a whip. The moment Prince Alessio had taken hold of her hair, Neveah had already known where he would take her, down to the depths of the dungeons, where no one would hear her screams. Neveah would think it was in consideration of the guests present in the Eclipse Palace, but she knew it was not so. This was not the first time Prince Alessio had dragged her down to the dungeons like some criminal. For the past hour, he had whipped her repeatedly, and Neveah had not uttered a single sound beyond the occasional whimpers. Neveah was grateful her wolf was understanding enough to withhold her healing abilities, letting the wounds bleed out convincingly to Prince Alessio's eyes. That way, in his eyes, Neveah looked to be nothing but a weak and distasteful human. An entire hour had passed by, and it was only now that Prince Alessio relented in his whipping, leaving her back and chest aching with a lattice of raw wounds. "Do you understand now? Or shall we continue our lesson?" Prince Alessio sneered disdainfully as he watched Neveah. Neveah ignored his words. She would never admit to a wrong. She did nothing wrong. They were the ones who were wrong, all of them. "Do you regret it? Protecting him and risking Father's wrath?" Prince Alessio asked again. "You told Father, didn't you?" Neveah asked in realization, her thoughts confirmed by Prince Alessio's silence. "Regret? There is nothing to regret," Neveah said with a pained chuckle. "You never learn, do you, Omega?" Was he worth this agony? Prince Alessio snarled furiously. As always, in the bid to force Neveah to lose her calm, he ended up losing his own calm instead. Neveah smirked as she stared straight at Alessio whilst saying her next words. "At least he knew how to make me lose myself, and he didn't need a whip," Neveah replied, smirking in satisfaction as Prince Alessio's furious growl shook the dungeons. Neveah staggered down the hallway, heading to her quarters whilst clutching a vial in her hand. She was not surprised to see she did not encounter anyone on the way. Most of the Eclipse Alphas had already left the palace for Mount Vernon, and the Eclipse Fang warriors had been dismissed. Neveah groaned quietly. Every ounce of her body throbbed with pain, and she could feel the raw sting of her injuries grazing against the clothing she wore. But she bit her lip harshly to keep in any sounds. She continued down the hall till she emerged from the main palace and then headed to her quarters. Neveah stumbled into her room, breathing heavily as she shut the door and headed to her mirror, stripping out of her clothing and wincing at the sight. Angry red welts from the whip crossed the entire expanse of her chest, and Neveah did not even want to guess what her back looked like. Prince Alessio had been ruthless, leaving cruel marks across her body, sparing only her face, the one part of her Alpha King Lothaire cared the most about. Neveah was only glad the whip had not been silver, or her cover would have been blown immediately when her skin sizzled and burned in reaction to it. "By the Creator!" a voice exclaimed from Neveah's bathroom, and Neveah turned sharply to see Layla, her new attendant. "What the hell are you doing here?" Neveah snapped furiously, as the bucket of water Layla had been holding dropped out of her grip in her shock, spilling all over the ground. Neveah frowned in distaste at the messy sight and the trembling attendant. "Who did this to you, Princess? I will inform the Alpha King immediately," Layla exclaimed in panic. Neveah quirked a brow at Layla, fixing her with a deadpan gaze, and Layla's eyes widened in understanding. "The Alpha King did this?" Layla exclaimed in shock, and Neveah was growing annoyed by Layla's innocent pretenses. Layla was sent from the Alpha Queen, excluding the fact that everyone in Eclipse Fang already knew Neveah was not the noble princess she acted to be, but was in fact a scorn. Anyone from Alpha Queen Vilma had obviously been sent out to torture her. How could she act surprised to see Neveah in such a condition, when she should have rightly been elated? "Leave," Neveah ordered, turning her gaze back to the mirror. "But Princess, let me tend to your wounds," Layla began to protest. "Leave!" Neveah snapped fiercely, her gaze blazing with fury. Layla quickly grabbed the bucket and hurried out of Neveah's room, shutting the door behind her.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.